It was a cold afternoon in a quiet little town when Ethan Cole lifted the rusty shutter of his old repair shop. The air smelled of oil, dust, and memories. Ethan was a simple man who believed in fixing anything that was broken, whether it was a car, a radio, or someone's hope. He never charged people who couldn't afford to pay, especially if they were struggling. People in town called him the kind mechanic, and though his wallet was often empty, his heart was always full. That day, as the sun began to set behind the gray clouds, a black luxury SUV stopped in front of his shop. Ethan looked up, surprised. Such cars rarely stopped here. The door opened, and a well-dressed woman stepped out. Her clothes, her shoes, even her perfume, everything about her looked expensive. She seemed nervous, clutching her handbag tightly. "Are you Mr. Cole?" she asked softly. Ethan nodded and wiped his hands on a rag. "Yes, ma'am. How can I help you?" The woman glanced back at the SUV. "My name is Mrs. Walker," she said. "My daughter's wheelchair broke down this morning. We've taken it to several technicians, but they couldn't fix it. Someone told me you can repair almost anything." Ethan's eyes softened. "Let's take a look then." He followed her to the car, where he saw a little girl sitting quietly. She looked about 10, with light brown hair and bright blue eyes that carried both sadness and curiosity. The girl smiled shyly at him. "Hi," she said. "My name is Lily." Ethan smiled back. "Hey there, Lily. That's a fine-looking chair you've got. What seems to be the problem?" "It stopped moving," she replied. "It just makes clicking sounds now." Her voice was small but full of trust. Ethan knelt beside the wheelchair and gently touched its sides. The metal was cool under his fingers, and the control panel lights flickered weakly. He listened closely to the sound it made, then nodded slowly. "Mind if I take it inside to have a closer look?" Mrs. Walker hesitated. "It's a very expensive model, custom-made from overseas." "I don't know if you—" Ethan interrupted her politely. "Ma'am, I may not look like much, but machines talk to me. I'll treat it carefully." With great care, he wheeled the chair inside the shop. Lily followed him with her eyes, watching curiously as Ethan opened the side panels. She could see him concentrate deeply, his fingers moving with confidence. He wasn't guessing. He seemed to understand what every wire and screw meant. As he worked, Lily asked him many questions. "Do you like fixing things?" she asked. Ethan chuckled. "I love it. Machines have hearts, just like people. When they stop working, they're not broken forever. They just need someone who cares enough to understand them." Lily smiled. "That's what Mom says about people too." Her words warmed the room. Mrs. Walker stood nearby, watching quietly. For the first time in weeks, she saw her daughter smiling instead of crying out of frustration. It reminded her how long it had been since she'd seen that innocent joy. After a few minutes, Ethan sighed and stood up. "Well, the good news is it's not beyond saving," he said. "The bad news is the problems inside the control chip. It's cracked and no longer sending power to the motor. I don't have a replacement, but I might be able to rebuild it by hand." Mrs. Walker looked doubtful. "Is that possible?" Ethan smiled. "I've rebuilt engines from scratch with nothing but scrap metal, ma'am. A little circuit won't scare me." He got to work again. The hours passed slowly. The evening turned into night. Ethan sat hunched over a small table, the only light coming from a weak yellow bulb. His fingers worked carefully, soldering tiny connections together. Sweat rolled down his forehead, but he didn't stop. Lily watched him fight sleep as he tried to bring her chair back to life. At one point, Mrs. Walker offered him money. "I'll pay whatever it takes," she said softly. Ethan shook his head. "You don't have to. I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing it because she deserves to move freely again." That answer touched her deeply. She realized there was something rare about this man, a quiet kindness that money couldn't buy. Around midnight, Ethan finally leaned back and rubbed his eyes. "All right, let's see if you still have some life in you," he said, connecting the wires back together. The tiny indicator light blinked once, then again, and finally glowed steady green. A wide grin spread across his face. "She's alive." The next morning, when Mrs. Walker and Lily returned, Ethan had already tested the chair several times. "Go ahead," he said, handing the controller to Lily. She pressed the button nervously. The chair hummed softly, then rolled forward. She gasped. "It's working. It's really working." She laughed and turned in circles, the happiest sound echoing through the shop. Mrs. Walker's eyes filled with tears. "You actually fixed it," she whispered. "How much do I owe you?" Ethan smiled, wiping his greasy hands. "Nothing at all. Just promise me she keeps smiling like that." Lily rolled closer and hugged his arm. "Thank you, Mr. Mechanic," she said softly. For a moment, Ethan didn't know what to say. He just smiled and patted her shoulder. "Take care of your ride, partner. It's got a good heart now." As the black SUV drove away, Lily kept waving from the window, her laughter fading into the distance. Ethan stood by the door of his shop, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. He didn't know why, but fixing that chair had felt different, like he had fixed something more than just a machine. That night, as he locked up his tools and turned off the lights, he looked at the empty spot where the wheelchair had stood. He smiled to himself. "Worth every minute," he murmured. He didn't realize that this small act of kindness done quietly in his little shop was about to change the course of his entire life. Because sometimes one kind heart and one broken machine can start a story that no one ever forgets. 2 weeks passed after Ethan fixed the little girl's wheelchair. Life in his small repair shop went back to normal. The sound of engines, the smell of oil, and the sight of broken tools lying around made up his quiet world. He had almost forgotten about the fancy SUV and the kind little girl named Lily. Sometimes, though, he caught himself smiling when he remembered her laugh echoing through his workshop. It reminded him that not every job was about money. Some repairs were about hearts. One cold morning, Ethan was working on an old pickup truck when he heard the familiar sound of tires on gravel. He looked up and froze. The same black SUV he had seen 2 weeks ago was pulling into his yard. He quickly wiped his hands on a rag, wondering if something had gone wrong with the wheelchair. He hoped not. The door opened and Mrs. Walker stepped out. This time, she wasn't wearing her fancy business clothes. She looked more relaxed, more human. And beside her, rolling happily in her chair, was Lily. Her face lit up when she saw him. "Mr. Mechanic," she called out with excitement. Ethan grinned and waved. "Hey there, partner. How's your ride?" "It's perfect," she said proudly. "I named it Sparky. It goes faster than before." Ethan laughed. "That's good to hear. Sounds like Sparky's got some spirit." Mrs. Walker walked closer, holding something in her hands, a white envelope. Her eyes looked softer than before, almost emotional. "Mr. Cole," she said gently, "may we come in?" Ethan nodded and led them inside the small workshop. It looked the same as before, simple, quiet, with tools hanging on the walls and the smell of grease in the air. Mrs. Walker looked around as if studying the place, realizing just how humble his life was. Lily looked curious as she pointed to an old photo on the wall. "Is that you?" she asked. Ethan nodded. "That's me and my dad. He taught me everything I know about fixing things. He must have been kind like you," Lily said. Ethan smiled sadly. "He sure tried to be." Mrs. Walker took a deep breath and handed him the envelope. "This is for you," she said. Ethan frowned, shaking his head. "Ma'am, I already told you, I don't take money for. She stopped him with a gentle smile. Please, hear me out. This isn't just payment. It's a thank you. You see, my husband runs Walker Robotics, the company that designed my daughter's chair. Dozens of our engineers worked on that model, but none of them could fix it when it broke. You did. And you did it with tools that wouldn't even pass for proper equipment in our lab. Ethan blinked, surprised. I just did what anyone would do, he said quietly. Mrs. Walker shook her head. No, Mr. Cole, anyone could try, but only someone who cares would succeed. She pointed at the envelope. Inside, you'll find a small check and a letter from my husband. We would like to offer you something, an opportunity. Ethan opened the envelope carefully. Inside was a handwritten letter and a check. His eyes widened when he saw the number $100,000. His hands trembled slightly. Ma'am, this is too much. I can't, Mrs. Walker smiled warmly. You can. And you should. Because you didn't just repair a chair. You gave my daughter her freedom. You brought back her smile. No money can repay that. But we want to give you a chance to do more. My husband wants you to join his company as a senior mechanical designer. He believes your practical skills can help us build better mobility aids for children like Lily. Ethan felt his throat tighten. Me? Work for your company? Ma'am, I don't even own a computer half the time. I'd barely finished high school. Lily rolled closer and took his hand. You fix what others couldn't. That means you're smart in a different way. Daddy says real talent can't be taught. It's felt. Her words hit him deep inside. He stared at her small hand holding his, then looked up at Mrs. Walker, who nodded. We'll handle everything, she said. We'll move you to the city, give you a proper workspace, and pay you more than enough to live comfortably. We just need your heart and hands on our team. For a long moment, Ethan said nothing. He looked around his little shop, the peeling paint, the broken light bulb, the shelves filled with old car parts. This was his world, the only one he had known for years. But suddenly, it felt too small. He looked at Lily, whose bright eyes waited for his answer. Finally, he smiled softly. All right, partner, he said. Let's see what we can build together. Mrs. Walker's eyes shimmered with emotion. Thank you, Mr. Cole. You won't regret this. A few weeks later, Ethan found himself walking through the large glass doors of Walker Robotics. Everything looked like a different planet: polished floors, glowing screens, advanced machines. Engineers in white coats greeted him politely, but he could feel their curious eyes. They didn't know that the quiet man in the old leather jacket was the one who had done what they couldn't. Lily showed him around proudly, like a tour guide. This is our lab. That's where Daddy works. And that's where you'll work now, she said excitedly. Ethan chuckled, shaking his head. You sure I belong here, kiddo? She nodded firmly. You belong anywhere good things are being built. In the weeks that followed, Ethan learned quickly. He didn't understand all the computer codes and engineering jargon, but he understood machines better than anyone. He began working with the design team, suggesting changes based on real-world experience. His ideas were simple but brilliant: stronger motors, easier controls, safer frames. Soon, the company started producing new models of wheelchairs that were lighter, faster, and more affordable. News spread quickly, and children across the country began using the chairs he helped design. Every time he saw one, Ethan felt a quiet joy. He wasn't just fixing things anymore. He was changing lives. At the official product launch event, hundreds of people filled the grand hall. Cameras flashed and reporters gathered. On stage, the host introduced a special guest, Lily Walker. She rolled to the microphone, smiling brightly. This is my friend, Mr. Ethan Cole, she said. He fixed my chair when no one else could. Because of him, I can move, play, and dream again. He doesn't just fix machines, he fixes hearts. The crowd stood and clapped loudly. Ethan felt his chest tighten with emotion as he walked to the stage. He wasn't used to attention, but seeing Lily's proud face gave him courage. He looked out at the audience and said quietly, "I just did what I knew how to do." Sometimes, a little care can fix more than any machine ever could. Mrs. Walker stood among the crowd, tears shining in her eyes. She had once seen Ethan as a simple mechanic. Now, she saw him as someone far greater, a man whose kindness had turned into invention. After the event, Lily rolled up to him and whispered, "See, Mr. Mechanic? You didn't just fix Sparky, you fixed my world." Ethan laughed softly, his eyes warm. "No, kiddo, you gave me mine." From that day on, Ethan Cole became a name people respected. But for him, the title didn't matter. What mattered was seeing children smile, hearing wheels turn freely, and knowing that somewhere out there, a little girl was rolling faster than ever, thanks to a man who once worked in a small, dusty shop, fixing broken things because he believed nothing was ever truly beyond repair. And every evening, when he passed by the company's lobby, he stopped for a moment to look at a small photo framed on the wall, him, Lily, and Mrs. Walker standing together beside the first new wheelchair model. Under it was written, "Kindness is the greatest invention." Ethan smiled every time he saw it, knowing those words were true.